One of the more irritating leftist tropes to emerge in the last year has been the rise of Fearless Girl, a hedge fund-sponsored bronze statue of a small girl standing defiantly in front of the Wall Street Bull, which would presumably trample her to death if both figures were real. Now, Democratic politician after Democratic politician has come forward to pay homage to this bronze calf. First, it was New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, who criticized Wall Street, the same Wall Street that erected the annoyingly stupid icon. Now, it's Senator Elizabeth Warren, who took a break from writing shrimp recipes for Native American cookbooks to demonstrate that she, too, cares about metal effigies erected by disproportionately male investment firms. And, the picture is pretty amazing. She did persist in irritating the rest of us. Warren, of course, has been one of the lead Democratic voices in favor of so-called pay equality between men and women, ignoring all statistical evidence that the pay gap does not actually exist when all relevant factors are taken into account. Worth noting, Warren's female staffers earned 71% less than her male staffers did last year. Only one of Warren's top staffers earns more than $100,000 and was female. But this is all virtue signaling, of course. The notion is that if you don't stand in solidarity with a little girl against a giant bull, you must hate women and children. Somebody ought to inform Warren and other leftists that the little girl was once an unborn little girl, and Warren would then presumably stand with the bull. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Alrighty, tons to get to today. Lots of foreign policy news. I feel like every time I take off a couple of days, the world just reaches a new level of chaos, and so it is, and so it shall be. Plus, in just a few minutes, we're going to be having on Lauren Southern, who, of course, well-known right-wing commentator from Canada, and she was at the Berkeley Riot. Again, Berkeley does not seem like a nice place. All these friendly hippies are not that friendly, and so we'll talk about that. It's starting to look like the Weimar Republic out there. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Helix Sleep. So, I am not somebody who sleeps well. I require a very comfortable mattress and wonderful sheets. Helix Sleep provides the very, very comfortable mattress. It's helixsleep.com/Ben. The way this works, you go to helixsleep.com/Ben. You get $50 off your order, but they also will ask you your height, your weight, your body type. Do you like to sleep on your stomach or your side? And they use an algorithm, a proprietary algorithm, to determine what kind of mattress will work best for you. And then they send it to your house. The shipping is free. They send it to your house. And if you don't like it, you have 100 nights to try it out, and then you can send it right back. Helix customers report 30% improvement in overall sleep quality. My wife and I had a much more expensive mattress, actually, and we moved it out of the room in favor of the Helix mattress because the Helix mattress is so comfortable. It's helixsleep.com/Ben. You get $50 off your order. Again, it comes in a big box. You just unroll the box and it inflates automatically because it's a foam mattress. It's really comfortable. Unlike a lot of other foam mattresses, you can get ones that really breathe well, so it doesn't feel like you're in a kiln. I really like the mattress a lot. So does my wife. I can't recommend it highly enough. Plus, it's no risk to you because if you hate it, then you can always send it back for free. So that's great. It's helixsleep.com/Ben. Helixsleep.com/Ben. $50 off your order. I promise you won't hate it. You'll actually like it a lot. It's a fantastic product. Okay, so lots going on in the world. Among the things that are going on in the world, the Trump administration continues to kind of futz around on foreign policy, and we'll talk about that. But first, I want to talk about the fallout that happened from this election in the Georgia 6th District last night. So Georgia 6th District is a district that I think Trump won by a relatively small margin. He won it by 1.5 or 2% because there's been some redistricting there. There has been some significant movement in that district over time. 4 years ago, Barack Obama lost that district by 23% to Mitt Romney. So this particular district, last night, there was a runoff because Tom Price was the representative from that district, and now Tom Price is the Secretary of Health and Human Services. So there's a guy named John Asaf. He's a Democrat. He doesn't even live in the district, and he ran against a slew of Republicans. I think there were 11 Republicans. And the idea was that if he crosses 50% in this original election, then he wins the seat outright. If he doesn't cross 50%, there's a runoff. If there's a runoff, he likely loses because it's a heavier Republican district. So Democrats poured a crap load of money into this district. They poured $8.3 million into this local special election, trying to demonstrate that they were going to fight back against the Trump administration, and that was a giant fail. So the candidate, John Ossoff, won about the same percentage in the district as Hillary Clinton won in the district. He came up just short. One of the reasons he came up just short is because he doesn't actually live in the district, and that came out a couple of days before the actual election. Now, that's not illegal, but obviously most people who vote for their congressperson like to know the person actually lives where they represent. Here was Asaf yesterday trying to explain why he doesn't live in the home district.
Well, I grew up in this district. I grew up in this community. It's my home. My family is still there. I'm a mile and a half down the street to support Alicia while she finishes medical school. It's something I've been very transparent about. In fact, I'm proud to be supporting her career. And as soon as she finishes her medical training, I'll be 10 minutes back up the road into the district where I grew up.
Okay, so that explanation did not really do a lot for him. He's not going to win the general election in all likelihood because, again, now all the Republican votes are going to consolidate. He won, I think, 46%, 47% of the vote last night. All that Republican support is going to now rally around a woman I actually know pretty well, Karen Handel, who used to be an executive at Komen for the Cure, the Anti-Cancer Institute. She has been the Georgia Secretary of State before. She ran unsuccessfully for governor in the past. A really nice lady, very, very quality politician. She's not somebody who gets enthusiasm up high, but she will do the work that she needs to do, and she'll probably win. That's why Asaf yesterday, after he did not win outright, he was out there touting it as a victory for the ages. The entire Democratic Party is now trying to overstate how big a victory this was for them because he didn't win. So now they're trying to say that he just blew it out of the water, and this is just what's to come under Trump, that the Democrats are going to win back the House. Here is Asaf overstating his case.
There is no doubt that this is already a victory for the ages.
Thermopylae or what? I mean, victory for the ages. Let's not overstate the case, dude. You couldn't win an election in which there were a combined, looks like, less than 200,000 votes. I'm going to go with that's not a victory for the ages, especially if you don't end up with the congressional seats. Most of the people who talk about moral victories are losers. If you're talking about moral victory, it's because you didn't win. So there are some troubling signs for Republicans here. The most troubling sign for Republicans in the Georgia 6th, to be accurate, is that the Democratic turnout was down from the general election cycle, but it wasn't down nearly as much as it was down among Republicans. So if you look at the Georgia 6th or the Kansas 4th district was another case where there's special election. Republicans won that one too. But the Democratic turnout was down 25% from the Hillary election in this district in the special election. The Republican turnout was down 51% from the last election cycle in this election. So in other words, twice as many Republicans as Democrats by percentage dropped out of this election cycle. And that's not going to bode well for midterms because obviously Democrats are going to be more geared up for all of this. It's a little early to say that this just demonstrates that Trump is not hurting people down ballot. In fact, the number of candidates who ran in this Georgia 6th district, the people who are more closely tied with Trump, there is a heavy correlation between being closely tied with Trump and not doing particularly well in this election cycle. But it's not clear what's going to happen in 2018 based on this. Democrats raised an enormous amount of money, as I said. They put forward a huge amount of cash in this election, and they still weren't able to get this guy over the top. You know, it's going to be a good Democratic year, but is it going to be a good enough Democratic year to put them over the top? I don't know that that's the case. And the media, in search of some sort of victory, are, of course, overstating this dramatically. Don Lemon at CNN, he says that John Ossoff, you just saw him, John Ossoff. He looks like the guy from Ferris Bueller, who's not Ferris Bueller, the guy who drives his dad's Porsche out the window. Don Lemon says he sounds like Obama.
So that was John Ossoff in a very tight race down in Atlanta. He's projecting that it's going to be a runoff. Am I the only one who said he sounded like Barack Obama? No? Did that sound like Barack Obama?
Yes, he did. He did.
Universally, he said yes.
I guess, he figured it worked for him.
Yes, we can, John Ossoff. Yes, we can.
Everybody on CNN celebratory after not getting what they want here. It is amazing that he raised that much money. And again, he raised that much money and it still didn't help him. That looks a lot like what happened with Hillary Clinton, who raised an enormous amount of money and it didn't help her against Trump. But there are some warning signs for Republicans, and Republicans would be wise to pay attention to those warning signs. Now, meanwhile, over the weekend, I didn't have a chance to discuss it, obviously, because it was Passover, but over the weekend, there was this riot that occurred in Berkeley. Basically, there was a pro-Trump rally in Berkeley. The only reason to have a pro-Trump rally in Berkeley is to stick it to the left in Berkeley, obviously. And a bunch of anti-Trump Antifa characters, these are the people who consider themselves anti-fascist. There's nothing more fascist than showing up to an opposing rally and then wailing on people and beating the living crap out of them. It's actually pretty reminiscent of the Weimar Republic, where the Reds and the Browns were beating the living crap out of each other. And that actually led to the rise of a more dictatorial, authoritarian government. That's usually what happens. When there's chaos, people want more authority in order to tamp down on chaos because nobody wants to see this in their streets. Apparently, the cops were sitting by and doing nothing as all of this continued. Here's a little bit of the footage from what was happening during this bloody battle, basically. And you can see people beating each other with sticks. You can see that they're really going at each other, really hitting each other, people punching each other, running in, duking it out. There are pictures of people who are super bloody. There are pictures of people who have been, hit across the face. And it wasn't the Trump people who started this. It wasn't the Trump people who went there looking to fight it out with Antifa. You can always tell who the bad guys are. Now they're stomping on a guy. Look at this. It's just disgusting. Hitting people with skateboards. Really horrifying. You can always tell who the bad guys are in these situations. The people who are wearing the masks are the bad guys. If you feel the need to wear a mask because you're afraid that people are going to pay attention to you, see who you are, and arrest you, then you are part of the problem, not part of the solution. This was a free speech rally, so people were doing this in order to demonstrate that they would stand up against the Antifa group, and the Antifa people showed up and they were beating people. One of the people there pulled not only a skateboard but then pulled a knife. Apparently somebody was stabbed. I mean, just egregious stuff. And where are the cops for all of this? Why are the cops allowing all of this stuff to go ahead? Nobody knows. Where is the mayor? I mean, this is now the second time that this has happened in Berkeley in a relative span of months. Actually, it's the third time, if I remember correctly. There's a rally that broke into violence here. There's one that broke into violence in Sacramento at the Capitol in California. And then there was, of course, the riot that broke out when Milo Yiannopoulos went to speak over there. Well, joining us on the program right now is Lauren Southern. Lauren Southern was there. She, of course, is well known on Twitter and on YouTube. Canadian conservative libertarian political commentator and provocateur. She's the author of the book Barbarians: How Baby Boomers, Immigrants, and Islam Screwed My Generation. You can follow her on Twitter at Lauren_Southern or on YouTube as Lauren Southern. Lauren, thanks so much for joining the show. Appreciate it.
Hi, Ben. Thanks for having me.
So, Lauren, can you give me some details? Because I'm just seeing sort of the secondhand coverage. Obviously, you were there. So what exactly went down?
Yeah, for sure. Well, we were supposed to, every time there has been a pro-Trump, pro-free speech, right-wing event in Berkeley, it has been shut down by militant leftists. And the people there are just so sick and tired of it. So they said, no more. We're not going to live in a world in Berkeley where we cannot have a certain political idea without fear of being physically injured. So they had an even bigger rally this time. And the police assured myself and the organizers that there would be an impressive presence there, that the left wouldn't be able to shut it down this time. But it was under one condition that the police would be there, that everyone that went into this protected zone by the police disarmed, that we didn't have any sticks, any bear mace, any pepper spray. So all the Trump supporters went into this kind of they put up a little mesh orange fence around an area where we were going to have the free speech event. Mm-hmm. And then Antifa showed up and started surrounding the place around a bunch of disarmed people. But we were like, you know what, it's going to be fine. The cops are here. We're good. Then Antifa starts throwing M80s, little explosives and fireworks. And suddenly, boom, the cops were gone. They'd gotten stand down orders and we were left in the center of this area surrounded by Antifa, totally disarmed. And things just turned into chaos. It was fists flying everywhere. That's absolutely insane. And did you ever get an explanation from the police as to who actually ordered the stand down? Right. Well, that's the interesting bit. I was really frustrated during it, and I was like, I can't believe the cops did that. But another journalist went up to the cops and asked them, why are you standing down? And one of the guys sitting in the front seat said, well, that would be a question for our boss, wouldn't it? And he looked really mad. So it wasn't the individual cops. It was someone from higher up, for sure. And that's pretty typical. I mean, even when I speak at college campuses and the cops get stand-down orders, never the cops. It's always the people who are in charge of the cops telling them they need to stand down on this sort of thing. So for people who don't know what Antifa is, you've obviously now had dealings with them. What are Antifa? What do they think they're doing, and why are they doing it? They are the anti-fascists. They actually come from a wing of the German Communist Party, and they're a militant group that believe by any means possible, anything that can remotely be perceived as right-wing, anything to the right of Marx basically has to be shut down violently. And they use a tactic called black bloc, where they cover all of their faces so that they can commit crimes because the cops can't know who did it. And one of the big tactics they used during this one was they would grab individuals from this crowd and they pull them to the back and start beating the crap out of them. So their tactics are always cover their face to commit crimes and 10 people versus 1. And it's really it's really scary going against them because they have zero morals, zero whatsoever. They're hurtling bricks and giant rocks into the crowd. Literal attempted murder. Would have killed someone if it hit them in the face. Were there any arrests at this thing, or literally it just sort of ended and everybody went home? At the beginning, there were a couple arrests of Antifa that were trying to go over the mesh, and I guess Trump supporters that were trying to fight back. So there were a few at the beginning, and after the fact, when the police had just disappeared, they looked at a few of the videos and made a couple arrests. I think there were 11 or 12 arrests in total.
So one of the things that's horrifying about all this is that if you look at the media coverage of it, they treat it as though it's just sort of spontaneous chaos that erupts between the two sides, as though nobody actually launched the chaos. In the same way that when Milo went to speak at Berkeley and then the Antifa people showed up and tried to burn down buildings, basically, it was an equal distribution of blame. That it was half Milo's fault and half the protesters' fault, and here it's half the Trump people's fault. If the Trump people hadn't been there being so provocative, then it wouldn't have been up to the Antifa people to hit them. What do you make of all the media coverage?
BBC actually uploaded one of those little short videos to Facebook where they spliced together the tax protests and this Berkeley protest, and it wrote that Trump supporters showed up to the tax protest and started attacking the anti-Trump protesters. That's exactly what they did. After I called them out on Twitter, they've made a few edits to the Facebook post, but that was the coverage, just complete and utter lies. It's beyond fake news. It's deliberately lying to people, and they knew what they were doing. So it's horrifying, the state of media. I couldn't believe the coverage after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that obviously throughout the campaign. We kept hearing that it was Trump who was pushing violence at his rallies, but then it would be protesters from Black Lives Matter shutting down an actual Trump rally in Chicago, or protesters from the left beating the crap out of Trump supporters in San Jose. It is amazing how the media is able to flip this on its head. So are you guys planning any more of these events? And if you do plan these events in the future, how can you do that knowing that, you know, if anybody from the pro-Trump side or the pro-free speech side, because it doesn't matter if you like Trump or not, it's really more of a free speech issue. And from the pro-free speech side, if anybody shows up with a weapon, you'll probably immediately be arrested. But if anybody from the left shows up with a weapon, then they probably get off scot-free.
Well, Ann Coulter is supposed to be speaking on the 27th. I can't get too much into it, but I think there's some troubles already with that event, with Berkeley trying to shut it down. And this is the thing. We're at the point where we have to defend ourselves. I don't like to see that the state of political discourse in 2017 is fists and mace instead of signs and bullhorns. But that's the reality, is that we have to defend ourselves. I can't blame the Trump supporters for punching back or the free speech activists for punching back, because the cops are gone. So I think this is going to continue to escalate until the police stop getting stand-down orders in Berkeley.
Yeah, so what do you think, just a final question here, how much of this do you think are the students at Berkeley, and how much is it the Southside group Antifa? Because there's a lot of talk about that with Milo speaking there, that it wasn't really a bunch of lefties from Berkeley. It was really this Antifa group that was coming from outside, infiltrating and then making trouble. Here it looks like a bunch of Antifa people. And I spoke at Berkeley 2 years ago. It was not a problem at all. Obviously, Milo speaks there as a riot. Ann Coulter is going to speak there. There probably will be a riot. I think it's because Antifa was not a presence when I was there a couple of years ago, and it seems like a pretty recent development. But how much of this do you think is organic, and how much of this is astroturfed?
Well, I will say I went for a walk around the area before the event, and everywhere in Berkeley, the whole damn city is covered in spray paint that says Antifa Zone. And that could be people that have come in. There were definitely people that were brought in from different areas to fight, like the one girl who got decked in the face. She drove down from quite a while to be there. But it's definitely been, over the past 2 years, I would say, these kids also in university have been radicalized more and more and more over the media, saying all right-wingers are Nazis. Of course they want to fight and stop Nazism. When they've watched Indiana Jones and Glorious Bastards, they want to get their 100 Nazi scalps, right? And they've truly been convinced this last year that Trump supporters and free speech activists are Nazis. So it's a mix between people coming down and between young people being radicalized over this past year.
Well, Lauren Southern, thanks so much for doing what you're doing. Lauren Southern, you can follow her at Lauren Southern on Twitter. It's Lauren_Southern, or on YouTube as Lauren Southern. She does terrific work. Lauren, thanks so much for joining the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so before we continue with the analysis of what Trump is doing on foreign policy, and it's a real mixed bag there. There's a bunch of stuff happening on foreign policy that demonstrate continued divided mind among the members of the Trump administration. I want to stop and say thank you to our sponsors over at Blue Apron. So if you are sick of eating at oversalted and overpriced restaurants, if you would prefer to eat at home, great recipes that you can home cook, you can spend time cooking with your kids. It's something I enjoy doing with my 3-year-old. Then what you can do is you can subscribe over at Blue Apron. Blue Apron is the #1 service in America, fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country, and they send you a new recipe every single day with all of the ingredients that are parceled out already for the meal. So you don't have to worry about measuring, you don't have to worry about you screwed up the recipe. It's all done for you. You just put it together in the pan, and everything cooks in less than 45 minutes. It is less than $10 a day per person for a delicious meal, and the Blue Apron families obviously cook a lot more than people who are not Blue Apron, because it's a hassle to go shopping for all of the ingredients. I remember years ago, my wife suggested, wouldn't it be great if there was a service that did this for you? Now Blue Apron does do it for you. BlueApron.com/Shapiro, and some of their featured upcoming meals. I mean, these are all like gourmet meals. You don't have to be a gourmet to cook them because they tell you exactly what to do. It's stuff like sweet and sour salmon with bok choy, carrot, and ginger fried rice, baby broccoli and fontana paninis with hard-boiled egg and arugula salad, spinach and fresh mozzarella pizza with olives, bell peppers, and ricotta salata. If you don't like a recipe, they won't repeat it for you, and the recipes rotate all the time, so you don't have to get bored with your diet. You know, that's an issue in our house where you have the same thing every Tuesday night. It's like, oh, God, not casserole night again. You never have to deal with that again with BlueApron.com. Again, it's fresh, it's flexible, it's easy. If the ingredients are bad, they'll resend them to you, obviously, because they guarantee the freshness. Check out this week's menu. Get your first 3 meals free when you go to BlueApron.com/Shapiro, BlueApron.com/Shapiro. You will love how good it feels and tastes to create these incredible home-cooked meals. They are first-rate. Everybody in LA is now using BlueApron.com. So BlueApron.com/Shapiro. Get those first 3 meals free. Try it out, and I promise you'll be addicted really, really quickly. Okay, so meanwhile, on foreign policy, there's a lot of chaos going on all over the world. And I want to take it kind of area by area because there's a lot of lack of clarity out there on everything from North Korea to Turkey to Iran. So big story of the day is that the Trump administration has now stated that Iran is abiding by its commitments under the Obama nuclear deal. This is just a terrible move by the Trump administration. It is asinine to suggest that everything is hunky-dory with regard to Iran, that Iran is doing everything that it can to abide by the nuclear deal. They obviously are not. There have been multiple reports that not only are they violating it with regard to attempting to buy certain types of uranium on the open market, but also they have been violating the nuclear deal by test-firing ballistic missiles. They've been doing that repeatedly since November. And yet, this is from Rex Tillerson. He says, the U.S. Department of State certified to U.S. House Speaker Paul Ryan today that Iran is compliant through April 18th with its commitments under the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. However, the secretary also raised concerns about Iran's role as a state sponsor of terrorism and alerted Congress to an effort directed by the president to evaluate whether continuing to lift sanctions would be in U.S. national security interests. They're trying to split the baby, saying everything is hunky-dory under the deal. The easiest thing to do would be to say they're not complying with the deal, therefore the sanctions are back on the table. They immediately snap back, and we're done here. This deal is a crap deal. There's no reason why we should be involved this way. But I think there's a split inside the Trump administration. They don't want to start some sort of firefight politically with Iran. They are obviously divided on what to do about Iran because Iran is sponsoring Assad, and they're divided about what to do about Assad. They're not sure that Iran is not a solidifying influence in Iraq. This is always my fear about Trumpian foreign policy, is that it's just so vague and so all over the place that it opens the door to the continued growth of evil regimes like Iran. But that's not the only problem with Trump foreign policy that's cropped up this week. I want to talk about Turkey and North Korea, but we'll do that if you go and subscribe. Over to dailywire.com, become a subscriber to the podcast. $8 a month gets you a subscription to dailywire.com. You get the rest of the show live. You get to be part of the mailbag, which we'll be doing on Friday this week. You get Clavin's show live. You also get, right now, a free copy of The Arroyo, fictional film set on the southern border. Plus, we have lots of goodies coming up. And we're going to be giving discounts on a bunch of new products that are coming up from the long-awaited Shapiro store, which will happen. dailywire.com. Go over there and check it out. For an annual subscriber, you get that copy of the Arroyo DVD. It is a great service. It's a great movie, and you're going to want to be part of the Daily Wire team. So go over to dailywire.com, become a subscriber. Otherwise, go over to iTunes or SoundCloud later and become a subscriber. And if you do become a subscriber, make sure to leave a review at iTunes. That always helps in the iTunes rankings, where we are, as always, the top-rated conservative podcast in the United States.